Well, first, if you see one thing that is remarkable about the entry of the AITC here in Meghalaya is that it is seen as a vertical split within the Congress. In the state where it first became very strong, the AITC was seen as an alternative to the BJP. But in the case of Meghalaya, the perception and in fact the reality is that because of the split in the Congress, reducing it to a mere shadow of its presence all of these years, so the AITC is now seen as an emerging challenger in the power politics of Meghalaya before 2023. You see, I have always maintained that in Meghalaya our politics is individual driven. It is personality based. Therefore, political parties do not have much of a space, and the electorate elects individuals rather than political parties. At least in the Khasi Jaintia sector, that is the case. So the AITC will have more bearing when it comes to Garo Hills, because its chief architect, Dr. Mukul Sangma, has been instrumental in the victory records of the Congress party in the past 2 decades or so. So to that extent, the AITC will have more importance, more bearing on the political scenario in the case of Garo Hills. But in the case of Khasi and Jaintia sector, I reiterate that our politics here has always been individual driven and based around personalities and candidates and not on political parties. It's difficult to first be on your feet, and even more difficult to make imprints. So to that extent, forming and sustaining a political party is not a walk in the park. It is a difficult task, to be certain. My immediate reading is that the AITC Congress split will play a very significant role in the Garo Hills sector, and especially with the Congress being reduced to just 5 MLAs in the Khasi Jaintia sector, and also the emerging news that even MDCs are all deserting the Congress. So the Congress will be wiped out, at least in the Garo Hills sector. In the Khasi Jaintia sector, again, I maintain that we need to do more analysis. But the fact of the matter is that in this part of the state, elections have always been centered around individuals. It is an advantage to regional groups, regional parties, because we now have, when the enemy camp, when the other camp is split, divided, then there is bound to be, as has already happened, there has already been an exodus of supporters and workers, and also the perception that is gaining ground, because at one point of time, the general perception was that regional parties will not and cannot unite. But today, it has been shown, it has been demonstrated very clearly that national parties like the Congress could not remain united once they are out of power. It takes them just less than 4 years to be out of power for them to be divided and truncated in this manner. It's not easy to form and even more difficult to sustain a political party. So forming, yes, it's all right. Sustaining it and gaining electorally is very difficult. We formed KNAM with a lot of high hopes in 2002. And when it came to the elections in 2003, there were just 2 of us who emerged victorious. And then we took up issues like influx, the reservation policy, and the issue of embos. In 2005, I even stepped down as minister. But what happened in 2008? Politically, it didn't pay any dividends. From a position of 2 MLAs, we were reduced to just 1. So that's the story of political parties. So sustaining it will be really tough. But in the case of AITC, since it's a split within the party, and the majority is in fact with the AITC now, it's a different story altogether. And as I said, I see that Congress has already been wiped out, obliterated in the Garo Hills. Now, with that as a major consideration, it will have huge bearing on what happens in 2023.
The opposition.
It appears so, from whatever records one can gather. This is the first time that you have an opposition that is so divided, and this is therefore to the advantage of parties which are in the government. Certainly been delay, but the fact of the matter is that the State Assembly has already adopted a resolution in favor of ILP. I would suggest, I would make an appeal that before the end of the tenure of the current House, all resolutions which have been adopted by the Assembly, including the one on the 8th schedule, should be pursued rigorously so that we take them to their logical end. There can be no compromise there. AFSPA is already, the experience has been that AFSPA is illegal. It encourages illegal extrajudicial killings, and nowhere can we have 2 sets of law for the same country. You have issues of riots, militancy, terrorism, not just in the Northeast. It is an all-India phenomenon. Should therefore, to confine AFSPA only to the Northeast is already an acknowledgement that the centre considers Northeast, to be a problem zone, to be a problem area. You cannot make policies and adopt an area as part of your governance system when you see it as a problem. That is the root cause of the basic problem with AFSPA. And also it encourages the men in uniform to overtake the political system. How can you justify such a law? Completely be nullified. There is no space for such a law in a civilized country, and more so in the case of the Northeast, where you have small ethnic groups which can be easily suppressed by such laws to try to deal with even ordinary issues of law and order.